This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for all of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and as regular viewers of my channel know very well, I've always been a huge advocate for art self-education as an excellent, affordable alternative to art school, because I sincerely believe that everything art school offers can be achieved using the many free or at least vastly more affordable resources made easily available by the internet. I even went so far as to interview a friend of mine that did go to art school in the ridiculously long 2-hour video linked in the iCard above, just to further confirm that belief, with the insights and experiences he shared making me even more confident in my conclusion that there's nothing art school teaches that you can't learn on your own. All that combined with the fact that I myself am a self-taught artist might leave you a little confused as to why I'm making a video questioning whether or not self-education really is enough for an artist to make it as a professional. And that would be more than fair. So let me clear that up right off the bat. I thoroughly stand by my belief that when it comes to art, self-education is just as viable as formal education, and there's nothing art school offers that you can't get on your own with the right resources, if you do it right. And therein lies the problem, because more often than not, people don't. I've been pursuing art professionally since I was 17, which means as of scripting this video, I've been a self-taught artist learning and working for 9 years. But for the first 6 of those years, there was remarkably little significant improvement in my work at all. There were a lot of stylistic changes as I experimented with different directions I wanted my style to go in, but in terms of actual technical growth of my skills, I really wasn't getting much better as an artist. And that's because I was doing self-education wrong. I was working under the assumption that over time, as I kept drawing and challenging myself with new subject matter and rendering techniques and compositions and so on, I would automatically improve. And to a degree, that's true. The more you do a thing a certain way, the better you get at doing it that way. But if you're not deliberately working to improve the way you do it, you'll eventually reach a plateau where you're making the best possible version of the art that you're capable of making without the possibility for further improvement, because you've simply mastered subpar or sometimes even incorrect techniques. You can polish bronze all you want, but it won't make it gold. See, the thing about self-education is that it requires a lot of deliberate discipline and direction on the part of the artist. If I were in art school, that approach that I had to my art would have been true. I would, by nature of drawing and practicing and taking my classes, have improved automatically over time, because the classes would have been designed to make that happen. But as a self-taught artist, that's not a luxury I have. There's no existing pre-planned structure to the things that I'm studying or working on in place to facilitate accurate and consistent learning. It's up to me to decide what I study and when I study it. And without teachers telling me what things are important to study or pushing me to study things I otherwise wouldn't have wanted to, I ended up studying only things that I thought were important and that I wanted to study. If I didn't want to study color theory or perspective or composition, I could just completely neglect them and study things I had more fun with, like anatomy, allowing me to draw cute anime girls without actually making any meaningful progress towards becoming a better artist. Not only that, but the resources provided to art students are vetted by professionals as being factually accurate, whereas for a self-taught artist, the onus is on them to figure out whether or not the resources they're consulting are actually accurate at all, something that's especially difficult for beginner artists navigating the online sea of educational content available. All of this led me to a lot of artistic stagnation, not because self-education wasn't enough to teach me to improve, but because I wasn't using it right. In the past 3 or so years since changing my approach to it, I've seen vastly more improvement in my work than the entirety of the prior 6, and that's exactly why I wanted to make this video, to talk about the pitfalls of self-education that lead artists to underutilize it, how that contributes to the misconception that self-education isn't enough compared to art school, and whether or not you can, in fact, make it as a self-taught professional artist. And we will. But first, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace, a longtime partner of the channel. I could gush about Squarespace all day, and I can and will, because it's the all-in-one website building and hosting platform that I used long before I started working with them to build my personal Duchess Celestia portfolio site and the site for Royal Starship Studios, my art studio, a task that I had initially been dreading. But using their extensive library of ridiculously versatile templates, not only were they exceptionally easy to build, I actually had fun doing it. That's in no small part due to the fact that every single one of those templates can be extensively edited with Squarespace's Fluid Engine, a cutting-edge website design system that lets you edit every part of your site with its intuitive, easy-to-use drag-and-drop interface. And for any artist looking to turn their work into merch, Squarespace has you covered there too, because with effortless e-commerce and print-on-demand integration, it's never been easier to turn your site into an online store. You can even even go the digital route instead, using their members-only spaces to sell access to exclusive premium content. No matter what kind of site you need, from portfolios and blogs to landing pages and online stores, Squarespace's library of templates has you covered, and you can get a free trial to test it out yourself right now by going to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia, linked in the description, and use code DuchessCelestia for 10% off your first domain purchase. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. So all that out of the way, let's get into the video. 20 years ago, education was something largely limited to formal settings like colleges and universities, at least if the subject you were studying was something you wanted to pursue as a career. If you wanted to become a professional artist, getting a degree in art was widely viewed as your only feasible option. To a degree, that belief is still very much intact. It's what I was told as a kid, and likely what most generations older than millennials still believe. But the reality is that with the internet came the ability to create and consume any content and information you'd like with overwhelming ease. And that means that the availability of education is no longer just at the discretion of universities and colleges, but that of any individual who decides to provide it. If an art teacher wants to teach students, they're no longer limited to their ridiculously expensive to attend classrooms. If they want to, they can provide educational resources online to anyone who seeks them out, either for free or for often vastly more affordable prices than formal post-secondary education. And they are. Qualified art professionals are making legitimate, high-quality courses and mentorship programs. Individual artists are sharing their techniques all over social media, and as information and education becomes increasingly more accessible, the perceived value of formal art school is diminishing. Art isn't like other fields of study in which there's a specific curriculum you have to learn in order to pursue it professionally. Yes, learning the core fundamentals is necessary regardless of your professional goals, those being anatomy, perspective, form, lighting and shadow, and composition. But those can be learned and taught in a variety of ways, and other skills that are largely limited to specific mediums are no longer necessary in professional work. If you're going into the gaming industry as a concept artist, you will probably never need to know how to work with oil paints or utilize traditional painting techniques. If you're going into comics, you'll likely never need to use anything taught in the sculpting class that's mandatory for most fine art degrees. Over the past few decades, technology has changed and revolutionized society too fast for many aspects of it to catch up, and art school, in many ways, hasn't. Its curriculum is, outside of particular majors like animation, a remnant of a time when the only jobs available to artists after graduation were those in fine art, gallery artists, and commissioned freelancers. But as the art industry developed and grew, so too did the jobs available in it. Now, being a professional artist, that being an artist who makes their living solely through art, can mean so many more things than it used to. Storyboarding, background design, character design, 3D modeling, concept art, graphic design, splash art and promotional illustration, web design, content creation, freelancing. Hell, you can make an entire career out of drawing and rigging VTuber models, or writing and illustrating a webcomic, or selling your work on merch. And so many of those jobs simply do not require you to learn everything that art school teaches in the way it teaches it. So with a significant rise in readily accessible educational resources and the ever-expanding and increasingly versatile professional opportunities available, self-education for art is coming to be viewed much less as supplemental to formal education and much more as an alternative to it altogether. And that's what's got so many artists asking the question that I hear more than any other: can you make it as a professional artist with self-education alone? Well, I mean, to be blunt, yes, more self-taught artists are finding professional success every day, both in the industry and through self-employment. In fact, the art industry as a whole is shifting dramatically away from requiring formal education of its artists, looking more to artists' experience and the quality of their work than what school they went to, if any. Art school is not, in my opinion and that of many others, necessary for an artist to develop professional level skills and find work in their desired field. Self-education is absolutely sufficient, but that doesn't change that there are more self-taught artists failing to develop those skills and find those jobs than those that are succeeding, and that's because they're using self-education wrong. To examine just how they're using self-education wrong, we have to compare it to formal education in terms of what core elements of it are necessary to also be present in self-education. What are the most important things that art school offers that are needed for an artist to make it professionally? Those are the things that self-education needs to include, and since it's up to the individual artist to include them, those are the things that are often missing for those who aren't succeeding at it. Let's look at those things, and in doing so, look at the most common ways that self-taught artists, my past self included, neglect them intentionally or unintentionally. In my opinion, the four most important things that art school offers artists that are integral in developing professional level skills and actually making a career out of art are structure, resources, mentorship and peer review, and on-paper legitimacy in the form of a degree. Let's start with structure because I think that's the one that self-taught artists struggle with the most. As I said earlier, self-education requires a lot of discipline on the part of the artists themselves, and that's because compared to art school, there's no structure at all to the learning that needs to be done. When you go to art school, you're given a straightforward and linear curriculum, in which you're told exactly what you need to study and given lessons and assignments carefully constructed to teach you what you need to know and gradually hone your skills. The downside to this is, as I mentioned earlier, that a lot of those lessons and assignments teach things you don't need to know for most professional art careers, at least in the case of BFAs, or Bachelors of Fine Arts, like sculpting, print media, ceramics, and so on. And you're forced by that structure to spend your time learning them anyway. But the upside, and it is a very big upside, is that all the hard work when it comes to establishing everything you need to learn and how to learn it is done for you. You don't need to do research into what you need to study or how to study it most effectively. You don't need to construct a study schedule of what to learn and when, and you don't need to find the individual lessons or assignments needed to learn them. You also have people holding you accountable. If you don't finish an assignment on time, don't attend your classes, or avoid areas of study that you don't personally like or want to do, there are consequences for that. With self-education, all of that is completely up to you. You have to do all of that hard work on top of studying itself, which is incredibly time-consuming and difficult, and the only one holding you accountable for actually getting it done is you. All of that combined often means that self-taught artists neglect structure and just seek out classes or information at random based on whatever they need at that particular moment. They often only seek out education about things that pertain to what they're currently working on, not for the sake of learning, but for the sake of doing that piece well. What I mean is that in art school, the structure of the curriculum forces artists to learn anatomy, perspective, form, lighting and shadow, and composition completely independent from whatever they're working on in their own art, and for the sake of learning it, not for the sake of immediately using it. So while an art student would deliberately and consistently do exercises to improve their understanding of perspective, a self-taught artist might only seek out a lesson on perspective if they're working on a piece that requires them to, and might only use what they learned to finish that piece, not do the additional exercises required to properly practice and become comfortable with it. And since they're only learning what they need for what they're currently working on at any given moment, two problems arise. One, they don't learn, for example, how light and shadow interact with forms based on a variety of different factors. They just learn how light and shadow would interact with the forms in the piece they're working on. Because they aren't studying it or doing exercises to better understand it, they're just immediately implementing it into their work on an as-needed basis. Two, that their education as a whole is very non-linear, disorganized, and sporadic, because the things that they choose to learn aren't decided by any planned structure, but rather on whatever they need to learn at that moment for what they're working on. This leads to some skills being vastly underdeveloped compared to others, and other skills being developed only partially. The artist knows how to do the thing to make the subject look right in particular settings, but not why doing that thing is actually effective. But it doesn't have to be that way. Self-education can absolutely have structure. You just need to put the work into establishing it. If you have enough discipline and self-accountability, you can and should develop a study plan on your own, or use one of many that others have made and shared online. The beauty of self-education is that if done correctly, it takes the best part of art school and eliminates the worst of it. It keeps the structured learning that allows you to consistently improve your skills over time, while freeing you from the obligation to follow their singular one-size-fits-all study plan. You can make your own curriculum made up only of things you actually need to learn for your desired career, so you're learning not just consistently, but also time-effectively. But you still need to make sure that what you're learning is factually correct, bringing me to the next most important aspect of art school: resources. When you go to art school, the blessing of not having to seek out your own lessons and assignments also means that you know that what you're being taught is correct and complete. Art school resources and lessons are vetted as factually, technically accurate, and thoroughly explain concepts rather than just teaching their practical applications like many online tutorials. They teach why techniques work, not just how to use them. Being self-taught, on the other hand, could mean anything from I've taken a multitude of courses taught by qualified professionals and worked with an art mentor, to I watched a lot of amateur tutorials and followed them to learn those techniques, and everything in between, and I would know, having been both. That's because it's up to the self-taught artist to find reputable educational material themselves and verify that it's correct. And in a sea of amateur-made online content and a severe lack of fact-checking, that's not always easy. Self-education is only made possible by the fact that the internet allows absolutely anyone to create and share educational content. But that's a double-edged sword in and of itself, because it means anyone can make an art course or tutorial and claim it to be accurate, regardless of their own skill or professional technical technical experience or qualifications. This has led to a lot of self-taught artists relying on subpar learning resources full of misinformation and under-explained concepts, often because the more reputable ones aren't free. And unfortunately, that is the reality of the situation when it comes to self-education in terms of the adequacy of its resources. If you want to achieve a degree of learning that's on par with what's offered by art schools, you have to look hard for reputable resources, and you usually have to pay for them. What you have to pay varies, of course, but if nothing else, it is most definitely cheaper than art school. Be discerning, fact-check tutorials, look at course reviews, listen to recommendations from reputable online professionals, and self-education's resources can absolutely achieve everything art school can, even if it does still require some degree of financial investment. The next most important aspect of art school that self-education struggles by very nature to replicate is mentorship and peer review. There is so much value in having a teacher you can actually interact with. You can watch a pre-recorded video course and learn a lot, but if you have questions about anything that was taught, it's not like you can ask the teacher to explain it further. And unless the course has a project you can submit like many of those on Domestika and Skillshare, you don't have anyone actively reviewing your work's quality and improvement either. Even in those cases where you do submit a course project and receive feedback, it's usually just on that piece alone, not any practice exercises that art school teachers require you to submit to be assessed and marked based on how well you demonstrated an understanding of the techniques being taught. When you make mistakes in your work, it's because you're lacking knowledge of something. And if you're lacking the knowledge required to not make the mistake, you're also lacking the knowledge to recognize that you made it and need to learn how not to. Without someone more experienced than you evaluating your work, you may not even notice the mistakes present in it or why you made them. So you won't even know that there's something you need to learn how to fix, much less how to fix it. Constructive criticism from an expert is hugely beneficial, if not altogether necessary, to develop professional level skills as an artist. And it's also something that's inherently lacking in many artists' attempts at self-education, but it doesn't have to be. There are so many professional artists that offer paid mentorships where they critique your work, tailor a study plan specifically to your weaknesses and goals, answer your questions, and provide incredibly helpful hands-on specific advice. I took Jing Sketch's art clinic, which did a lot of that, and while that program has been discontinued, there are plenty more out there. Personally, once I'm done my current project and have more time to devote to my education, I'm signing up for ArtWAD's premium membership plan, which effectively offers a mentorship program from their team. There are absolutely ways for self-taught artists to integrate mentorship and peer review into their education, even if it's just by seeking out communities online where artists offer each other critique rather than investing in paid options from professionals, and it's all incredibly worthwhile. Finally, the last thing art school promises that's necessary to make it as a professional artist is professional credibility, in the form of a degree. Obviously, a degree isn't something that self-education can give you, but that doesn't mean it can't give you professional credibility in an arguably even more important way: experience and the development of a good portfolio. Self-taught artists are often working while they're studying, which means that so long as they're putting deliberate effort into creating pieces that can be used in a portfolio tailored to their ideal position, they can learn what they need to learn while simultaneously building the foundation for their career, just like in art school. As I said earlier, the art industry is moving away from viewing art degrees as necessary for professional work. Many positions do still require them, but more and more every day only require experience and a very promising portfolio. The experience is obviously the same catch-22 as any other job that requires that, which is its own can of worms, but the portfolio is what matters here, because that is absolutely the main priority of anyone looking to hire an artist in the industry. I've mentioned before that for an old marketing job, I was actually in a position to use ArtStation to hire artists for a big project, and after reviewing over 200 applications, I was convinced more than ever that art degrees have little to no relevance at all when it comes to deciding which artist is the right fit for a job, nor how skilled they actually are at art in the first place. I eventually stopped even looking at their qualifications and looked solely at their portfolios, because there were artists with BFAs and even MFAs that were nowhere near as good as those without any formal education at all. So there was literally no reason to take their education into consideration when it came to making a hiring decision. Your portfolio hands down decides whether or not you'll make it as a professional artist, and you can absolutely build one that's more than good enough as a self-taught artist. You just need to do research into what industry standards are for portfolios in your field, something that you can either look into on your own or consult professionals like ArtWAD on, the latter of which can even help you personally build one tailored to the job that you want. So in conclusion, yes, you can absolutely make it as a professional self-taught artist, and if you're struggling to, it might just mean you need to reevaluate how you're approaching self-education itself. The beauty of it is that it can be completely tailored to your skills, weaknesses, and professional goals. You just need to be willing to put in the work to tailor it yourself. yourself, discerning enough to seek out and use the best possible resources, and disciplined enough to hold yourself accountable for achieving your goals. Self-education is hard work, and contrary to what young, naive 17-year-old Celestia thought, it won't work unless you work it. Your art won't automatically improve significantly by nature of drawing for a long time alone. You have to put deliberate effort into improving it if you're your own teacher, and there are so many ways that you can if you look for them. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Art of Amethyst Fable, Zelda Deverak 42, Abyss Reborn, Haruki Kyle, and King Good James, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Elengshi, Kim Yen, Crazy Asar, Gintong, Grayson Xavier, MG, Law Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Grim Spectre, Celine Merriman, Ash, Eldritchia, The Stray Dog, Allura, Greg Noble, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Captain Reku, Ryan M. Williams, Cat Bus, Alec Renikainen, Mac, and Lucy Amajiki, and I'll see you in the next one.